What is going on, guys? PoliticsGaming here, and today we are doing a brand new episode of the nation of Japan. Not really a name to it, not really a republic, not really an empire, but it is just Japan. It is actually a monarchy, 125 million people with a GDP of $5.1 trillion. Probably going to be, projections are actually supposed to be around 7 trillion by the year 2050. It kind of sounds like a really boring kind of build up to only get $2 trillion in the next looks like 30 years. Well, actually not really 30 years, but 30 yeah, it's gonna be 30 years. We are 30 years from from the year 2050. But anyway, we are only a couple of days away from the first COVID case in Japan, so we're going to go ahead and make our way to January 16th, which is going to be day 0 for our COVID-19 pandemic. January 17th, just in case. New options out of the 2020 edition, the Holy Grail of nuclear fusion. There is but one ultimate solution to global warming, which is going to be nuclear fusion. Fusion power plants will produce much more energy than fission with very little fuel, and best of all, without producing radioactive waste. If we succeed in developing such a reactor, we will have the Holy Grail of energy production, a source of prosperity and security not only for our nation, but for the whole planet as a whole. By investing heavily in this research, we can turn this dream into a reality. Before then, we're going to go ahead and go over to our research tree. We're going to go to bacteriology, and then we're going to give them an additional $5.5 billion worth of funding. We're going to go to matter sciences, give them some additional funding. Looks like an additional $1 billion. We're going to go to energy and environment. We're going to give them an additional couple $1 billion. Looks like we're going to give about $10 billion. You are going to notice that these numbers are going to be extremely inflated. The reason for this is actually, and I'll actually show you, I'll go ahead and accept that. That puts our deficit up 2.92%. And then we're going to go over to taxation. Or actually not taxation, we're going to go over to currency. The reason that our numbers are actually going to be a little bit inflated is literally because of our exchange rate. The exchange rate is literally not even 1 cent. And how to get this up, I really don't know. And if I'm going to make that economic tutorial, we're going to try to figure that out. But don't really know how to get these exchange rates up on your own currency. But the biggest things to pay attention to is definitely going to be inflation, as well as the key interest rate. I'm going to be experiencing a little bit more growth, so I'm going to go ahead and set my actual interest rate. We're going to go ahead and set it to, let's do 0.25%. It's going to cost us $190 million. So we're going to start charging interest loans at about
we have detected a patient carrying the virus.
At 0.25%.
Performed twice to be sure, but there is absolutely no doubt. Faced with this unknown virus, even if there's no reason to be alarmed for the moment, we should nevertheless remain vigilant and have the means to react quickly if need be. To this end, we have put together a veritable arsenal of measures in the ministries relevant to an eventual epidemic, that being health, police, labor, and in the various economic sectors. This situation can potentially become a health emergency. You can put all of these measures in place, even by executive order and without passage in Parliament.
That gives us some of the first information that we need about this coronavirus pandemic. It is now January 16th at almost midnight, actually, so it's about to hit January 17th. Let's go ahead and play the game. January 17th now arrives. Just as we get our first case of COVID, we're going to go ahead and go over to Health and Social Security. We're going to go ahead and call for an additional 50,000 members to our medical staff, and we're going to go ahead and actually put this, we're going to do it at 252,000 active medical staff. That's going to cost us $2.5 billion. Go over to construction. Let's go ahead and build an additional 15 hospitals nationwide, and we're going to go ahead and get these done within 4 months. $2.3 billion. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that song real quick because I don't want to get copyrighted. Legislation. Let's look at legislation. We have a minimum retirement pension. Since the coronavirus pandemic is about to set in, we're going to go ahead and set that to $650 just to make sure that people are, you know what, we're going to save the additional $15 billion. We have a 3% deficit rate. Let's go ahead and that's going to pass on a 119, and then let's go.
We are now updating figures on the spread of this epidemic on a daily basis. You will find all this information mapped out in the Department of Health, on the epidemic map, on the comparative maps, and also on the table of global threats. I must inform you that this data, which will be made public, must be handled carefully. It depends on the number of screening tests we're able to perform, feedback from health centers and care homes, and evaluation of deaths at home. It should be noted that the same holds true for other counties, which could have even more distorted figures and often for political reasons. So comparisons between countries have little relevance except for countries where means and methods of counting are generally the same. If case and death figures are unreliable, the trends are without a doubt, and also, for every country, what allows us to follow the curve of the epidemic.
I think I'm going to go ahead and take a couple early measures, but one of the first things that I'm going to do is we're going to go over to Health and Social Security. I'm going to go to COVID-19, and then we're going to go to coronavirus screening tests. We need about, looks like 84,000 in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to go through and we're going to buy just as many as we can actually from some friendly countries. It's going to take a minute for me to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and be purchasing these things from countries that I can, and then I'm going to be purchasing them from myself. By the way, the way I actually did this, if you actually notice what I'm doing, I actually just hit the letter J, and then it leads me all the way over to Japan. You can do that for any country. So if I wanted to go to Kazakhstan, all I have to do is just hit K. It leads me over to Kazakhstan, but I'm going to go ahead and select myself as Japan. $103 million contract. And let's go ahead and order all these tests. Alright, looks like we actually got all of those contracts accepted. Let's just make sure. We got a lot of medical respirator masks as well as general masks for the public. Looks like we were able to request all of them and then purchase all of them in a we actually didn't have to negotiate any prices, so that's actually really good that we didn't have to do that. Let's go over to Health and Social Security, COVID-19. We have 9,200 ICU beds. That will actually change once the pandemic actually, I think, starts to heat up a little bit. And what I mean by heat up is basically, these things are the hospitals are asked by the government to I guess expand the number of ICU beds that they have, and then so the way they do that is they just kind of go through, they kind of reformat their hospitals, and then at the end of the day they end up increasing their numbers by about 30%. Then you have these things where you actually, a number of regions with overcrowding hospitals, you have 0. And then if you do have 1 or more regions with overcrowding, then it'll show you the most overcrowded region. Percentage of occupancy in the entire country is 0%, which will go up. A coronavirus screening test, let's see, 346 million coronavirus tests on the way, even though we need 140,000. Let's go ahead and go over to testing policy, and let's do the whole country, individuals exposed to the public. I'm gonna try to get a lock on this virus honestly as quickly as possible, so we're gonna have one of the most aggressive testing policies probably in the world for a little bit. That does mean I need to probably order a couple extra tests. We have 120 million people, so I think that might be enough. This might even last me at least a couple of years. And then let's go over to the policy on distribution of wearing masks. We have 566 million masks, or 566,000 boxes, I guess. If someone can, again, tell me what these mean. If I'm reading these numbers wrong, then please let me know. Let's do wearing a mask completely throughout the entire nation. I might even go up for 1 billion masks. Distribution of high protection masks, which is the FFP2, the N95, the KN95 as well. We're going to reserve these things for, let's do healthcare personnel. No, let's do reserved for community doctors and preceding lines. That actually might be way too aggressive. Let's do reserved for emergency health services, and then I'll see if I need to change the policy. Then we have all 3 policies going into effect right now. Let's go over to myself, Japan. We have coronavirus screening tests. Let's go ahead and order a couple more batches of the coronavirus screening tests, because you honestly, the more you can get, the better off your situation will be. The only things you really need to pay attention to is just making sure your economy won't collapse and making sure that people are not getting sick. If we get the testing policy and the to actually work, then that could actually stop the coronavirus from spreading. Let's go ahead and check on the spread of this. It's actually in a really nice curve going up. 6 active cases as of right now. No epidemic severity level. It's only in the Kanto region. 6 cases in the Kanto region, which is home to the largest city of Japan, which is Tokyo. Let's go to... looks like the United States should be getting its own infection as of right now. January 20th is actually the first day that it actually hits the United States, but the game for some reason actually does not actually report that it hits the United States until January 23rd, so we should get the first coronavirus test in the United States on today. Stock of tests are insufficient. This is serious, so we need more tests, but I already do have a lot of them coming in right now. Decree takes effect as of today.
The decree takes effect as of today.
So legislation on mask wearing and testing. That is great. Let's check the situation in other countries. China seems to be having some cases in the... is this Guangdong? I think this is Guangdong. We have Hubei, and then we have Beijing. I can actually recognize those regions without even saying their names. We have the Beijing region, and then the Hubei region, and then, was I right? Yep, it was the Guangdong region. Guangdong is actually the region just north of Hong Kong. We're trying to figure out whether it actually helps to if you actually come over to 3rd generation nuclear power plant, and then I'm making 28 terawatts per facility. Apparently the theory is that not just with this, but with other facilities such as solar and wind, if you actually hire more and more people, you will actually be able to get more power out of these facilities. So what I'm actually going to do is we're going to nationalize the solar and wind power sectors. We're going to go ahead and get this into a reform. We're going to call it the energy reform. That's going to be the name of that. So let's see how that passes. 76% through the national diet. And then we go over to wind-powered electricity. It's going to cost $2.5 billion. And then let's add that into the reform. 76.9% passage rate. Let's go over to taxation. Fix this economic situation that we're about to suffer. We need to get as much money into our hands as we can. So if we can actually get some extra money pouring in, then I could actually do 0.9. It's going to get about $15 billion into the national treasury, so that's going to be really good. And then what we're going to do, we're going to go over to police, we're going to go to COVID-19, and we're going to prepare for a lockdown. We're going to go to cafes, bars, and restaurants. We're going to do all of this simultaneously. We're going to go over here. We actually have a plateau of the amount of cases that we actually have. Let's go over to police. Let's go to population lockdown, nationwide travel, closing of the borders. Let's do borders closed for at-risk countries. Let's actually do border crossings are subject to health protocols and quarantine is required for suspected travelers. Let's do that for the entire country. Let's do regulate software for tracking the population. I would not do this as the United States, but since I am actually Japan, we're more of a technological society, and I think Japan actually probably did this in real life. It was either South Korea. I know China maybe actually did this, but South Korea possibly did this, and then Japan actually probably did this, and both of them have less than 100,000 cases of coronavirus throughout this entire time. Let's do tracking used and encouraged on a voluntary basis, or we could do tracking enforced for everyone. The notified person can then be tested following a quarantine in the event of testing positive for the virus, so the tracking helps limit the spread of the virus, but it opens up the debate on individual liberties, because users could be feel like they are under surveillance in their movements and could have doubts about the use of their data. Let's do tracking enforced for everyone, and then let's do that for the entire country. We're going to take a very hard step against this coronavirus just to make sure that we don't lose that many people. And if we get a coronavirus outbreak, which we have not been, it has not been declared as of yet. We have just 5 cases in the Kanto region. Lockdown inappropriate. Even the health officials, just give me a couple of days, please. I want to do this. And we are now in the month of February. Why is it taking me so long to get through just 1 month in this game? Well, this game does call for a lot of preparation, and I'm simply trying to prepare my country for the coming disaster. Date of stock out 1/2/1/20. Even though, we actually still have the 500 million that are still on the way. And fix up about 50,000 debilitated housing units in the country, just to make sure that people are not living too much in poverty whenever it comes to the coronavirus. Tax on industrial pollution. Let's go back to a tax on industrial pollution, and then let's do this at a whopping 0.2%. It actually nets us a little bit lower than what we were getting from the one before. Let's do 0.25%. That's going to net us about $12 billion. What I'm really going to be doing, I'm going to be waiting for this parliamentary election to come up. I can actually probably, what I can actually do, let's go to change the system for elections of parliament, and then let's do a majority. Instead of doing it proportionally, we're going to do it by a majority, and that means that whoever gets the most amount of seats in the parliament, even if it's above 50%, then that party will be the ruling party. So if I actually do this, this could actually work against me. But if I actually do the election correctly, then I could actually win this election by a landslide proportion. What are the benefits of patenting things? Basically, whenever you patent things, you actually give your country the advantage of profiting off of, let me actually go to plastics. Plastic industry. The biodegradable plastic, for one thing, actually affects the plastic industry, and it gives you a boost to your production. It may not actually show up on the technological level, but if you actually notice anything, it does actually give you a boost over the course of a couple of months to even a couple of years to that specific industry. We make $94 billion off of We make $94 billion off of sales from the plastic industry alone, but we're only making nearly just $1 billion in profits from that industry as well. So let's go ahead and give them $1 billion worth of subsidies, and then we're gonna go to water supply networks. Let's go to COVID-19, financially support struggling businesses. Usually what I have noticed is that the water supply network industry actually ends up suffering a lot because of the coronavirus. And I've actually noticed that in the country of the United States, in which I've actually had to lend over about several $billion at least to the water supply network industry just to keep them afloat. And if these guys end up collapsing, then what can actually happen is that it would drastically affect your farming industry. Your farming industry would be completely destroyed if your water supply network industry collapsed. Let's go to fishing. Let's exonerate fishing, and then let's go to aquaculture. And then exonerate aquaculture. What's the difference between fishing and aquaculture? Fishing is just basically the essential business of fishing. It's you getting on a boat or going to a barge and then fishing and then selling those fish for commercial purposes. Aquaculture is basically the same thing, except you are raising these fish in controlled habitats. It's basically it's like a water treatment plant. It kind of looks like more of a water treatment plant if you've ever seen one, except that it is full of fish, and that's where caviar is produced. It is the place where sometimes a lot of fish, it's kind of like just industrial level. It's actually making only $5 billion worth of profit. Wow, I can actually subsidize this. Let's get a government involvement in this sector. Let's go ahead and confirm that with the TV address. 51%. If I can actually get the Japanese citizens movement to support it. Person is not available on this date. If I can actually get them, let's do it for Saturday, I guess. Before that Parliament vote, it's going to be on the 18th. But yeah, aquaculture, they need cereals and maize. Fishing just needs naval transportation. So fishing is essentially just looks like, which is actually very profitable for Japan. If I actually $22 billion, and then if I wanted to do the whole sector, it's going to cost $73 billion. $22 billion could actually work, but I'm not going to be able to get involved in it now. Well, I mean, a deficit of 2.19%, I could. Nationalization. We just need to get some political support for this. Is that a meeting?
Can't take it.
Citizens Republican. Huh. Okay, offer a glass of champagne. Please support my law. Okay, he said that he's going to support it. Nuclear energy improvement of fission plants. This basically means that third generation nuclear power has been discovered. We're not going to patent it. Let's go to the meeting with the Citizens Republican president, which is my successor, basically. This guy's going to be running in the election in 2021. Tell him he has radiance. Tell him that his militants can be proud of his leader. Change the system for election to parliament. Encourage them to support that law. And then let's do the adjust the nationalization.
No problem. I intend.
We actually got him to do it. Tax on industrial pollution.
I'm sorry.
Well, looks like the industrial pollution tax was the only one that he couldn't support. But let's go to industry. No, not industry. Let's go to farming. I really need to stop concentrating on my economic sectors because I'm spending way too much time on these things. Fishing, aquaculture. 52. We got a successful bargain for the diet to actually support something that they didn't originally support before. That's actually one of the first times in a long time I've actually been able to energy reform has been passed, but that is one of the first times I've actually been able to get something like that passed. Basically coaxing my parliament into voting whichever way I want to. Aeronautical construction is going to be something we're going to be concentrating on. Let's see. They are making $0 in 2019, but now $32 million in 2020. Are they exonerated? Yes, they are exonerated. They are making $331 million in sales as of right now, and $126 million. Can we get a full government involvement in this sector? Should we? Or should we just do the... Since we are actually... Okay, what I'm actually going to do, we're going to bring this into the government as a whole. Okay, we don't need a TV address to do it. Let's go ahead and incur the $1 billion. And this is essentially just to help this sector unless it gets completely critical to us. Once we sell it off after we build it up, then we're going to be able to make a lot of money off of it. Let's services. No, I'm gonna stop concentrating on this. We're gonna go ahead and go up a couple of days. Maintaining tracking policy. I've actually never done this. You could at least stop taking us for idiots. You assured us that these measures, which I call as constitutes an unacceptable intrusion into private lives of our countrymen, was necessary to ensure health and safety, but now you are prolonging these exonerating, however you say that, circumstances and all the excesses that go along with it. We have in mind the example that a man who are extramarital affair was exposed by the app. This cannot go on. We are waiting for a change, and we are standing firm. This is the National Association for an Alternative World. Usually they always come out and say not even one tweet, and then they protest with like over 100,000 people. Looks like our majority parliamentary constitutional amendment was actually passed, so that is great. Let's see what the coronavirus is doing to Japan right now. 14 active cases as of right now, and it has spread to the Kansai region and the Kyushu region. That is unfortunate that it is continuing to spread throughout the country. 19 people have been infected so far. Looks like we're going to be dealing with a outbreak, so we're going to go ahead and soften the tracking app. We're going to do that through the entire country. Let's do population lockdown, regulate businesses. Let's do opening permitted while following health protocols. And schools, let's do reduced classes with health protocols, February of 2020. Recommended once we actually get over 100 cases, then I'm gonna do that, just in case. Sure. Coffee, radiance. Why is there another meeting with this guy? And just in nationalization. I guess that helped with the nationalization cause. Yeah, looks like we actually nationalized it fully. Yeah, we actually did. That's awesome. Let's go over to here. Let's give it an additional $1 billion in subsidies, and then let's go over to workforce. Let's give about how much should we do? Let's do 50,000 guaranteed jobs. 216. God dang. Hang on. Let's do 10. Whoa. Dang. Let's do 2,500. $10 billion. Okay. Nope, I guess that's the correct number. Jesus Christ, how much are we paying them? $4,470. Let's go ahead and just increase it to about $4,500. We are going to get at least the 2,000 people to start up this industry, and then we're going to leave it over. We're going to see what happens whenever we actually get the manpower up, and then once we actually do that, then we're going to see how the sector is doing. If it's getting over $1 billion in profits by that point, then I think that's going to be the point where we're going to sell it back to the private sector. It's going to be a very temporary nationalization, and then if we really need to, then we can actually get implementing restrictions the time necessary. Can't really give you a lot of time during a pandemic, my guy. 41 active cases of the coronavirus in the country right now. Our research regarding data transmission is making progress. We have perfected our own production system for fiber optics, whose delivery is incompatible with the traditional coaxial cables. We are the first ones to have made the discovery, which a couple of other countries are probably going to be able to do. Let's go ahead and accept the opportunity to patent fiber optics. 1 gigabyte internet. This affects the numerical networks and infrastructures sector. But 10 gigabyte internet does not actually affect any industry, even though it takes a couple billions of dollars basically. We have the optic computer that's going to become a thing in the 2020. It's going to improve our computer hardware industry, which we could actually go over here and let's support the computer hardware industry. Let's give them $2.5 billion worth of subsidies. So not 25 billion. We're going to give them $2.5 billion worth of subsidies. Doesn't affect production one bit, but let's not affect that. Let's see, $22 billion if we wanted to get a government involvement in the sector. We're going to leave it to the private sector for now. Can't really get involved at this point. So we're going to just see what happens if we leave it to the private sector. $18 billion worth of sales in the software industry. If we actually do this needs computer hardware industry, great public holography, electric components, and then great public bionics. This sector right here is going to be very important that we nationalize that sector as quick as we can, because once this sector gets on the ground, this sector is basically unstoppable, and this will become an extremely profitable sector once it is discovered. And if you actually get some government involvement in that sector, or even just nationalize the sector completely, you will make billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of money off of this sector alone. Let's go ahead and continue. It's going to be February 28th, February 29th, since it is a leap year.
Health officials.
Lockdown is inappropriate. Yeah, I don't care right now. If you think it's inappropriate, like, come on. Let's see how many deaths we've had. We have had 2 deaths so far, 126 active cases. It is spiking. We really need to, let's go to health and social security. Coronavirus screening tests. We have 500 million tests so far now. We are making 2 million each week. We're actually in 2 weeks. So we actually have a stock out date of 2029. Let's go ahead and check on our stock out dates. Medical respirator masks. We have about a year left on these medical respirator masks. And again, these guys usually go out way quicker than your medical respirator mask for the general public, because in general public, looks like these people actually use these things a little more conservatively, which seems to actually reflect what happens in real life. But the stock out date for our respirator mask for general public, which is just regular face masks, the stock out date for that is going to be June 30th of 2023. So we have about 3 years before the general public runs out, but we have about a year before the medical teams start to run out of masks. So we really just need to pay attention to that, and then just occasionally buy masks for both the medical teams and then for the general public as well. We are now in the month of March. I'm going to go ahead and call this video quits today. So if you guys like this, go and leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, if you want to see more Power and Revolution content. Big question right now, what I actually noticed about this game, the coronavirus actually ends whenever the coronavirus ends in your country, and it kind of comes to an end throughout the entire world. There's not really a resurgence of a COVID-19 sequel, I guess, if you want to call it that. Not really a sequel. It's actually in the game. It's called SARS-CoV-3. Or SARS-CoV-3. Essentially what I'm asking is, do you guys want to see coronavirus in this gameplay, or do you guys not want to see coronavirus? I'll go ahead and put something in the video that you'll actually see here. If you guys want to see more Japan, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and take care.